Welcome to episode 9 of the slaphappy podcast. This is going to be a different episode. From here on out, the show is going to look a little different. So, when a man loves a woman, or any type of relationship occurs, we don't have to heteronormalize it. When two people, I don't want to say two people because it kind of goes beyond people at this point. It probably extends into multiple species and beings. So when two or more beings fall in love, they consummate that love in a sexual nature. It's not gross. It's just science. It's why we're all here today. Stork comes in, pulls us out of our mother's breeding trough. Cut the cord. We're alive. It's great. We eat cotton candy. We watch Netflix and grow up. The process begins all over again. That, in a nutshell, is the sexual reproduction process. I feel confident saying me and Wyatt were in love. And our consummation of that love was this podcast, which, albeit may not have been a sexual act for us, but I believe could be considered naturally arousing to listen to, probably by design. The audience would probably be better equipped to answer that. You guys may know. Maybe that's a poll question. I'll keep that one up here. Anyway, we've all heard the story about the birds and the bees. But love doesn't end with making a baby. That's the easiest part of love. Unless you have underlying medical issues that make such acts, unfortunately, impossible, or you're just old. But possessing a baby or coming into ownership of a child can be quite easy. The most difficult challenges of being in love are the sacrifices you make for each other, which for me, in this instance with Wyatt, was setting aside my career aspirations of becoming the voice of distinctive sport at ESPN 8 The Ocho, which is something I've been training for my whole life. But I gave it up to spend more time with the person that I'd committed my life to. The early success of the show and the awards and the fame that inevitably came with our accomplishments, it allowed me to empathize with the celebrity experience. The exposure we were experiencing was enough to change anyone. I could tell there was a change in mine and Wyatt's relationship almost instantly when that glorious fame hit. There was a growing hunger in his eye, and I assume also his tummy, that I wasn't sure I or our podcast love child could satisfy. He wanted more. So I guess you could say I saw this coming, but of course I never wanted to believe it. And I never imagined it would happen so soon. Over time, I noticed him coming in late to recording sessions and just seeming distant and distracted. It was troubling. We'd never been like this. I felt myself being committed to a different person than the person I'd given my life to just months prior. And I felt this distress just building up inside of me until after a few weeks, I couldn't take the fear of the unknown anymore. I just needed to hear the truth. That truth is that Wyatt was offered the lead color commentary position at ESPN 8 The Ocho. He told me he was going to accept it, and he left for the Honduras Equestrian Pictionary Championships, the HEPCs, this past week. Now, what that means for his future on the show is unclear. But one thing, and I just want to emphasize, if there's one thing I can make clear to you, the listener, in case you didn't know who I was referring to. But I guess I really don't have to clarify anymore since I'm in a room by myself only talking to you, the listener. The one thing I can make clear is that I will never leave you. I would never take a job that would make me sacrifice our relationship. Mainly because that job's now taken by my ex. And out of concerns for you feeling abandoned, I don't know if this would be the right time to admit I was going to leave you, even if I was, which I'm not and never will. Now that I think about it too, I'm not even sure me and Wyatt were in love after all. See, if a relationship is something you make sacrifices for, shouldn't it also be something that you don't sacrifice for anything? And when I say that, I think of this show. I think of all you listening. I think of how I'm not sure whether that makes you all my lovers or children, but as long as it's not both, I think we're fine. So from here on out, I will be your host through our journey of sport, self, and beyond. It's definitely going to be an experiment, much like our first few episodes were, as we're trying to find out what works and what doesn't. And we go into this new solo chapter of not only the show, but my life and hopefully your own. I mean, not solo as in you're living your life alone. Hopefully you don't have to do that and go through the things that I go through. Hopefully you can just enjoy that solo experience through my pain and pleasure that comes with being alone. I'm genuinely excited to see how we, the show, myself, and possibly even you grow as we embark on this new independent journey of exploration. Think about it. We can talk about whatever we want. We can talk about mushrooms. I could play a kid's cheering sound right now. Oh my Lord, this is wonderful. I can even make new friends. And sure, all these things are things I guess I could have done anytime, but I'm thinking them now. And that should count for something. The opportunities are endless. And I know some of you are Wyatt's friends and have no clue who I am. And I don't know if listening to the show will help that, but it could be entertaining for you as well as others you know. All I can ask is that you give it a shot. And if you're listening this far, congrats, you've probably already done that. So I appreciate it. If you like it, awesome. Keep listening. And if not, that's fine too. We got a lot to cover though. Plenty of sports talk and our first interview ever. So let's get into it. Roll the music, Steve. I've heard in the news lately that several publications and media outlets have claimed that the Slap Happy podcast is the most unfortunately timed podcast in the world. Despite our massive overnight success I mentioned earlier. Our first episode was February 25th, and our second episode was the end of March, where Corona truly asserted its dominance. And while I'm willing to admit some truth in our timing, I don't think it's something that deters us from our craft. As the ultimate competitors that we are, just in this podcast sphere for the love of the game, we see the challenge of no sports as a small obstacle on the road to wherever we're going to. And I think that may be a metaphor to life. This isn't just a show of flaming hot sports take. This is a place of philosophy and discovery where we look deep into the bowels of the world and see this shit for what it is and how that shit presents itself in our daily fiber-filled lives. And you may say, why are you saying we when you're the only one on the show now? And it's because I'm a team first guy. We're all in this together. See, we may have created a sports podcast that can't really talk about sports, but now if sports are ever fundamentally eradicated or canceled by cancel culture, we're prepared to talk about anything. Luckily, sports are coming back, so let's talk about the biggest story in the NFL. Big Ben struggles with adult film addiction. So Ben was speaking at this Urban Impact event where he addressed his own battle fighting off the field vices like alcohol and pornography that prevented him from being the best husband, father, and Christian he could be. And there's a lot of people making jokes right now at the expense of Big Ben for this taboo admission. And maybe there is a place for that. I don't want to judge anybody, but this is a safe space, even for athletes, even for Ben. It takes immense bravery and gall to do what Ben did. Even if we all probably knew this was an issue he dealt with by looking at past allegations or just his face. But this is Ben's redemption story. It's not about all the terrible things you do or are accused of. It's about how you choose to grow from them. And while Ben was choosing the wrong ways to grow, it seems like he's gotten himself together. And I think that deserves respect. Ben coming out and confronting his past mistakes, not relating to legal issues, but to the overindulgence of sensual film, not only gives us a glimpse into the hardships he's overcome, but shines a light on an issue that, frankly, has been in the dark, dim-lit basement bedrooms of many men and young adults all over the world. I can't speak on behalf of others, but from my own perspective, this admission raised many questions for me about the vices in my own life. Luckily, I realized my bedroom's upstairs, so technically I cannot have this issue. But other issues, not that I would have this issue if it weren't for the technicality either. I just want to make that clear. I have sex, but if I were to be in the same splooch-soaked sea boat as Ben and others, I'd love to see an athlete or someone as famous and admirable as Big Ben speak out about what could hypothetically be my truth if I were to have a basement bedroom. And to see the pain and damage it did to him and his right elbow and how he emerged from that would make me, again, hypothetically, feel empowered to take back control of my own life, put the iPad down, and become the best Christian husband father I could be. Or at least a better version of myself. And isn't that what we're all trying to become? A lot of people are treating this as a small little laugh story to distract us from issues in the world right now. But what if this is a real issue that we, including me, don't know anything about? We have so many important cases out there, and I'm going to be honest, I'm not completely sure if this is one of the most important, but it is a cause, and every cause deserves a voice, right? Athletes are only able to live out their dreams and entertain us until their late 30s or 40s, unless they're Tom Brady, but he obviously never jerks off. After that, most athletes are forced to choose a brand new career because football is their main passion and what they dedicated their lives to. So they kind of just stay in that and become announcers and analysts, which is fine. But in this instance, I think Ben's future career chose him. He obviously had other interests outside of sports and educated those affected by the ills of abusing digital promiscuity may be his true calling card to become the voice of this currently voiceless issue. More importantly, I don't think you even have to have a porn addiction to understand and take value from what Ben's preaching here. I think one could see this situation and say, if Ben turned his life around with an addiction to Jack and Jill, why can't I with whatever I'm going through? I think that's the moral of the story that Ben's trying to rub out here. We shouldn't judge people for the vices they have. We should treat a vice as a vice. All of us have vices. I have vices, obviously not related to pornography, but I still have vices. We all do. What if instead of judging each other on the peculiarity of our struggles, we could all come together to beat off the collective struggles we have? I probably shouldn't have said beat off there, but you get what I'm saying. We're stronger as a unit than as we are independently. And if all these issues just gravitate towards each other, it may be messy, but I think we can get more done. The act of masturbation may only be a one-person job, but I think when it comes to fixing the problem, as the old saying goes, it takes two to tango. And I think that may have been why the phrase was invented. So if we can work together, I think that's the only way that we fix this issue. And for Ben's sake, and the health and loneliness of many others around the world, I say, let's get to it. Although seemingly impossible, there was debatably bigger news than Big Ben becoming a worldwide porn redemption speaker. And that was former MVP Cam Newton signing with the Patriots last week. I think I speak for a lot of us when I say I feel duped and teased by Belichick and his assistant GM dog, one of which is hard to stay mad at. But I see a lot of people are upset and in the same boat as me of the possible return of contention from New England in the AFC East and maybe even in the playoffs. I feel bad for everyone besides Jets and Cowboys fans that are going through this. I'm right there with you. I was struggling with this for days. Not sure how I was going to cope. Thought about turning to the vices of the world, but I heard my old friend Ben. He's right in my ear telling me to stay strong and fight through. And I think with his help, I came out on the other end with a perspective that has changed how I've thought about all this, and I think can help everybody. On the surface, we all want the Patriots dynasty to end, obviously. For football fans in the same age bracket as me, we've all seen the Patriots' dominance. A little tired of it, perhaps. But then again, it's all we know. So how do we really know we want it to end? In fact, now I may argue that the NFL would be less interesting if the Patriots weren't interesting. Let me explain. We need enemies. Every good story needs a villain. Have you seen Batman? Name a Batman where there isn't a villain. Same thing as the NFL season. Through my life, I've faced many foes who have told me terrible things. Like I was never going to be good at anything. My dreams were too big. I have appendicitis. To this day, I still receive hate from time to time, and I don't know if I'd want to live without it. It's what fuels me and what makes victory and defeating those enemies so fulfilling, to the point where I don't think I'd ever want to be universally loved in fear of losing that motivation. In fact, if I ever got to the point where I was universally loved, I think I'd probably have to put people on my payroll to troll me just so I could stay at that peak motivation, which would cost more money than just naturally having haters. So I'm probably just going to stay in my lane where I'm at right now out of financial responsibility. But that's what the Patriots are. They're haters. They want to tear our teams down. They want to tell us we're not good enough. Our dreams of winning Super Bowls are too big. We have appendicitis, and that's what makes beating them so fulfilling. They wouldn't be the Patriots if they weren't that bully that the rest of the league is trying to stand up to. They would be the Patronauts or the Pastry Knots. And who really cares about beating the Pastry Knots? We need good villains. The NFL needs good villains. Who else is Roger Goodell going to take picks away from if the Patriots aren't good? Whoever signs Kaepernick? So I get not wanting the Patriots to win the Super Bowl. Unless you're a Patriots fan, then that makes sense. But we should still want that motivation to beat the best. And I think that's one of the major benefits of Cam landing in New England. Now, if they go 8-8, we can really get on them because they actually have the talent to be a good team. Would it be the same with Jarrett Stidham back there? Or would the Patriots, in this case, the Pastry Knots, have the excuse of saying, we had Jarrett Stidham, of course you're going to beat us? And I think I'd kind of have to agree. Although Jarrett Stidham is already a preseason Hall of Famer in his own right, and I don't want to take anything away from him because he earned that title. If he turns out not to be a regular season Hall of Famer, that's going to be the ready excuse. And I'm not sure if there would be a no excuse way for the Patriots to go 4-12 with Jarrett Stidham. And in a world where everything's going haywire, where we now have 2 pandemic level diseases and 4 to 5 foot tall bats, it feels kind of nice to have some regularity where the Patriots are good and we can all come together against one familiar common enemy. In other news, baseball's back, I think. I'm not completely sure. Apparently, they're in spring training, and I still have a lot of unanswered questions when it comes to baseball. First, is it still called spring training? Because obviously it's not spring anymore. I don't know what the protocol for that is. I want to use the proper lingo. Don't want to disrespect the sport. But second, despite what one may think, I'm a pretty big conspiracy theory guy. I know I appear very level-headed on the surface, but on the inside, my mind just moves at this almost Inception-like pace, where half the time, I don't know if I'm in reality or a Martin Scorsese movie. And even right now, to be honest, I'm not quite sure. And the MLB has had some pretty trippy things going on. And I feel like we've really glossed over the real explanations as to why there have been so many issues in coming back to play baseball, and specifically one big issue in particular. I just think it's very convenient how a worldwide pandemic from a lab-created disease has sparked and knocked out the world of sports and the world beyond it for months. And now we might have baseball. It's looking like we're going to have baseball. But by now, it's completely forgotten that this was going to be the season the Astros were going to get absolutely wrecked for cheating their way to at least one World Series. And more importantly, stealing that World Series away from the Yankees and an MVP award from Aaron Judge. Very suspicious. Sus, as the kids say. The Astros are sus. The whole situation is sus. And if my math is correct, in a 162-game season as designed for a typical Major League Baseball season, the Astros would have been hit at least an infinity number of times. So in this 60-game season, as it's been presented, the Astros will be thrown at less than that, which would completely disregard the unwritten rules of baseball, which in itself leads me to ask, if there's no unwritten rules, can there really be baseball? And I don't know if I have an answer to that because we've never seen it, but for the sake of my argument, I'd say no. We've never seen any of this, and that's probably why I'm so sus in thinking there's a conspiracy behind why this baseball season has been tampered with. And I refuse to be hoodwinked by the bigwigs of baseball. So my conclusion as to what happened is this. After the Astros were forced to remove their trash cans from the dugout, they put them in some dimly lit broom closet in the undergrounds of the stadium, in which they used said trash bins as if they were witches' cauldrons to concoct the disease being the coronavirus. Many people don't know this, but along with the Astros investing a ton of money in their analytics department, they also have one of the most advanced spell and potions people in the league. Anyway, they put the Rona in cans, disguised it as Truly's, shipped it over to China with a return address to Daryl Morey's house. China is like, Truly's, these taste awesome. Personally, I don't know if Truly's taste awesome because I'm a highly masculine man who can bench 245s and the bar. And if Wyatt were here and not doing color commentary for the Hep C's, he'd probably say something like, didn't your dad come by and offer you beers and you turned them down because you only drink seltzers now? And I'd say, yeah, but I thought that was a private conversation. Nonetheless, China drinks Truly's, gets Rona, world gets Rona, Astros get out of being tossed at infinity amount of times. And I already hear the refutes coming. Yeah, you're a Yankees fan. Yeah, I am a Yankees fan. But I don't even see how that factors into this when the evidence is just so clearly stacked against them. So much so that they're now trying to slander the Yankees by saying that they cheated. But if the Yankees cheated, they would have just created the corona. And they didn't. The Astros did. When it comes to just the game of baseball coming back, regardless of why it's gone. I think we're all just kind of tired of it. Baseball's the boy who cried wolf. They've been through like 9 proposals. Again, if my math is correct, that's close to infinity. And it's great they've come to an argument and they're starting spring training, but I'm not going to believe it until I actually see baseball being played. Which, to be honest, I'm not sure will even happen with everything else coming back. And coming back to play big, meaningful games when you talk about the NBA and the NHL's March Madness. Regular season baseball, I don't think, is going to be a necessity to most people. And now, if the Astros give everyone in those 2 leagues corona, and I have nothing else to watch, and it's like a normal summer where baseball has no competition, I'll miss baseball. But given that when sports come back, we literally are going to have everything thrown at us pretty much right away, unless Corona 2, the sequel, comes out with a vengeance, we're literally going to be in a Golden Corral-esque sports setting. And I'm not sure if my first plate is going to have baseball on it. It's not like I don't want baseball, but at this point, it's just better to set my expectations low so I'm not disappointed when they don't end up playing. I think it was George Washington. Might have been George Washington Carver. I always get the two confused. But one of those two said it best. If you never set expectations above failure, you're guaranteed success. One of the reasons why George Washington or George Washington Carver is one of my very few personal heroes. When I played Little League, I always went to the plate saying, I'm going to strike out. So when I did, I was like, yeah, I was right. I'm a genius. And then when I got hit, I was like, I'm a once-in-a-generation athlete. And now both things are true, so it's worked out great. And while my athletic talents may be unique, I don't think this feeling about baseball is. It's just dragged on for so long. Think about it. Negotiations started May 12th. Baseball had a huge opportunity to be the first major sport to come back and at least have a month and some change of some lack of competition they're used to. And a little bit more. Because not even are there barely any sports, but there's barely anything to do. And now they're coming back pretty much the same time as everyone else, playing a 60-game season that no one's going to take seriously. And they're already on the bad side of the good portion of their fans. And then when football comes back, if they go that long, I feel like they're going to be buried. Like an actual question here. Would you rather watch your team's preseason football game or a playoff baseball game without your team involved? So say you're unfortunately a Jets fan. And would you rather watch just like a shitty football game? Or would you rather watch a playoff baseball game? Say you're a Mets fan and like they also suck, but you can watch like a good baseball game that doesn't involve the Mets, that's in the playoffs, maybe even like a World Series. Like maybe even, let's just throw a couple names out there and say the Yankees and the Dodgers. If you were a Jets fan, would you rather watch a preseason Jets game or Yankees-Dodgers if you were a Mets fan as well? And for me, in this circumstance, it would be a Colts preseason game, which is just quality football all around, or like, let's just say, to make the argument fun, Mets and Diamondbacks. And I guess it could be disputed, but when you flip it around, it's not even close. There's no hesitation you're watching the NFC or AFC Championship game or Super Bowl over a preseason baseball game. So I think that means thank you to the Astros for ruining baseball and happy summer, spring training, whatever you want me to call it. I'm fed up with baseball. I'm fed up with it. Let's get to the NBA, whom I also have a bone to pick with. I may be more upset at the NBA because our opinions were completely and blatantly disregarded when it came to the selection of the host hotels and resorts for the teams making their way to Orlando. And I bring it up not only because it's disrespectful to us, but to many parties, including the players, coaches, and maybe most importantly, the entire Pirate community. Apparently, the NBA is an anti-Pirate league, and I think that's in part to why the NFL will always reign supreme. It's the Pirate bump. And despite the NBA being the only league of the major 3 American sports leagues not to have a pirate-related mascot, this was the golden opportunity for them to have a chance to redeem themselves for years of pirate silencing that they've contributed to. But no. We're given the Grand Floridian, the Grand Destino, and the Yacht Club. None of which were in our top 6 choices, and more importantly, none of which are pirate-related or themed in any such way. I checked. I wanted to give the NBA a fair shake, so I researched these hotels pretty intensely, and I would imagine in the same, if not more depth, than the association had themselves, and I have yet to find an excuse to shift my disappointed feelings. The only culture we're presented in this list comes from the Grand Destino, which is listed as a unique blend of Spanish, Mexican, and Southwestern American cultures. And that's awesome, Al. Not taking anything away from them. But if we're talking culture, these cultures have lands and countries that are dedicated to the practice of their culture. To my knowledge, the Caribbean Beach Resort may be the only land that pirates possess other than an occasional amusement park pirate ship. And I think that's the reason pirates have ships, because there's really no land for them to be pirates on. Hence what makes the CBR, the Caribbean Beach Resort, so important. Especially if any NBA players are also pirates. The only resort that I somewhat understand is the Yacht Club. We mentioned the Beach Club last time. My co-host at the time did. And out of a slight feeling of pity and respect for Peaches and Cream, I'm willing to give Adam Silver and the NBA 1 out of 3 on their selections, but don't let that fool you into thinking the league did well in their choices. 1 out of 3 is typically only considered a positive feat in baseball, not basketball. So as far as my official draft grade for the NBA, which is really what matters here, I would give them a... Can we have a selection noise? Do we have a selection? Steve. Producer Steve, do we have a selection noise? It's not in the budget. What do you mean the budget? You need a budget to play a selection noise? Can't you just make one? Do I have to make one? Are you going to make me do it? Why do I have to do everything, Steve? Okay. So as far as my official draft grade for the NBA, I would give them a do. How was that? Was that good? You picked that up? You're going to make me do it again? Why? Well, you didn't get that? How'd you not get that? I said it right in the microphone. I was picking up everything. Damn it, Steve. So as far as my official draft grade for the NBA, I would give them a E+. We get that one? We got that one. E+. They didn't really fall into an ultimate fail grade. I understand some of the faults. Conditions were tough. We've never seen a pandemic like this. Our world has never really been like this. But I don't think they completely deserve a pass on this either. I mean, we did it as podcast hosts. So they get an E. E+. E, very underused in the letter grading system, quantifies their precision, I would say, excellently. And there's a couple E's in excellently as well. Warning. Up next is our first interview ever. Try to brace your excitement. Actually, don't. Just let it loose. Let it loose. Get ready. Get excited. Just keep wiggling. I don't care what you do. Just enjoy it. Just wanted to give a heads up. It was recorded over Zoom because of travel struggles. I mean, it's the coronavirus, people. We can't be together all the time. Sometimes you got to record digitally over the World Wide Web. That's what it was invented for, that kind of freedom, that kind of just social distancing. So the audio is a little scratchy. Just heads up. Just be cognizant. Be okay with it. Just don't say, hey, why is it like that? Just know, oh, it's Zoom. Blame it on Zoom. I'm very happy to welcome on a super special guest with us today for our first interview ever. You may know him as a former standout goalie for the now disbanded Southern Vermont College. I know him as an acquaintance. Some may even say friend. But none of that has to do with the reason Mr. Noah Chani is here with us today. Noah runs an online thrift resale operation, which by my wording sounds illegal, but I'm pretty sure it's not, although I'm not completely sure. You could probably explain more in depth for the listeners. First off, Noah, thank you for joining us.
No problem, pal. Do you want me to just go right in?
Go with it.
Okay. So basically, I go to thrift stores and I just rummage through the trash of other people, and I pick the gold and I sell it, and sometimes it just so happens to fall in the hands of Ryan Kondo's admirers.
If you're lucky enough. And just to be clear, it is illegal.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a lucrative operation we got going on. Lots of child labor. And,
But they do good work.
Who?
The child.
Yeah. Yeah. They do.
So we're gathered here today because you had a very special purchaser that may be very close with a very close friend of mine. Do you even know her name? Do you remember who her name is?
So as far as I can remember, because I was going to ask you, it's Jessie, right?
No.
Okay. No, I don't remember her first name.
So did you just sell this to a girl named Jessie and you don't know, or was it?
No, I'm pretty certain.
Okay. It is Claire Kittle.
Okay, Claire.
Obviously the wife of George and or Greg Kittle, depending on which sources you listen to. I've never met her, but I would consider us acquaintances due to our mutual admiration of George/Greg. And just to confirm, that is the right person. Right?
That is the person. They don't follow me, but randomly they just liked the post and bought it off my website. So same, the Instagram account and the name linked up. I'm no football guru,
connoisseur.
So
Gotcha.
I forgot the name, but
as soon as I heard about this, I knew we had to have you on the show to ask you a few of my many, many questions. First off, is there any, well, we've already associated that this is an illegal business. So I guess there is no customer privacy agreement that you're breaking by being here. Am I just allowed to ask you anything?
Yeah.
Okay. First question, what is it that she bought?
It was a Clemson crew neck, Clemson Tigers.
Very interesting. Very interesting. First off, I'm not even sure if Clemson is the Tigers. I think they are, but I'm not sure. I just know that they have a little paw and that they have purple in it.
Aren't they?
Second off, so you are breaking the news on our show that despite John Lynch saying they'll actually get a long-term done, San Francisco and George Kittle, that George Kittle is actually interested in returning to college for a year to play with the Clemson Purple Tigers.
Right. That's true, but it's pending, he might have to sit out a year. The transfer rules.
Just the transfer.
They're under reform, so we might be looking at like 2021, 2022 season, perhaps.
Okay, well, that's when his contract runs up. So perfect.
But now,
perfect.
The question is, if there's no NCAA season this year, does that count as a
year of eligibility?
Right. Well, no. Does that count as the year he's sitting out?
Well, he's going to be playing in the NFL. So I would assume that it does because he won't be playing college. But I mean, we never know how college rules really work. It's the NCAA. They could suspend him before he even starts playing, before he even announces this. Obviously, I knew that this was coming. I just wanted to kind of confirm it, make sure that you authentically knew and you were authentically talking to the real people.
Yeah.
And that's kind of why I asked, because George has obviously told me about the Clemson thing.
They sent me a note confirming that when we made the transaction.
Okay, so I just wanted to make so you asked why she was buying it, and she told. Okay,
they just told me.
Okay,
they told me.
Okay. So have you had? Well, obviously you've had conversations with the Kittles. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
There was no conversation. They just sent me the letter.
It was just a note.
Yeah.
So was it a written letter or was it an email or was it
handwritten letter? My guess is that when they received the package from me, they took it upon themselves to handwrite me a letter and send it back to the return address, letting me know why George Kittle's wife could possibly want a Clemson Purple Tiger crew neck.
And then she gave you that full reasoning. He was looking to go there.
Right, but I have another theory.
Okay. First, before you get into that, was it black, red, or blue ink?
So it was like navy blue, almost purplish, but navy blue, I would say. With
they're so unique.
The classic Clemson.
It was almost the Clemson color.
Yeah,
purple.
Yeah. So classic Clemson spell out with the paw.
Artistic.
Mm-hmm. I made it myself.
You made it yourself?
No.
Okay, they made it themselves.
The children.
Oh, the sweater. I was talking about. Okay, I was talking about the letter. That was just a miscommunication. I didn't want to get too far into the child labor just because this is going to be out there. So they sent you a handwritten letter. Was there anything in that, any juicy stuff other than the stuff you've already reported?
Not necessarily, no.
Okay. Maybe a thank you. Did they list a thank you?
It was a token of their appreciation at the same time. Yeah.
So gracious. Okay.
I know.
Was there perhaps a shipping address or phone number that you could share with us?
Now, I don't know if that's allowed, but I can.
Okay. We'll talk about it after the show. We'll talk about it.
I can try to archive that.
Okay. We'll get to it after. I have one more question. Was I mentioned at all in this conversation?
Not directly in the letter, which was our only form of communication. But I strongly believe the whole thing on their part, other than that George is going back to college, was a ploy to get closer to you indirectly. But it's a good route.
Yeah, I could see that.
Because it's working.
This conversation is basically a conversation between me and George.
Exactly.
Because you are now my direct plug. If I don't want to DM him, which I don't see why we won't DM, but if I can't reach him through the DMs for some reason, I have his phone number, but you also have his phone number and you also have his address. I also have that because we're really close, but just in case I ever lose it or anything. Now he's like, oh, here's your backup.
I consider myself at this point a disciple.
I think that's a fair classification.
Yeah.
Of myself or of
George. I'm a disciple of George
and me,
fulfilling his work to become closer to you, even though he is busy training and eating whatever's in the fridge.
See, there's only so much that he can handle directly, and that's what I'm trying to get out to the people who think we're not really friends. Thank you. I think that's all I can say on behalf of you being here. Thank you. That's all I really have, Noah. It's been a pleasure. I really appreciate you being on with us. You're more than welcome to plug your stuff to the people.
Yeah. So it's just at Vintage Thrift New York, NY, not spelt out, just Vintage Thrift NY, and come shop, man. And actually, ladies too, because we don't discriminate.
Perfect. Thank you, Noah. In our month away, I had a lot of time to reflect and realize that sometimes my image on the show is not a fully truthful representation of myself. Frequently, our show showcases me having all this all-knowing knowledge that can seem somewhat unattainable. And though our production team, Steve, are you even paying attention right now? God damn it, Steve. Is my mic on? Okay, it's on. And though our production team does a great job of making me look quick-witted and brilliant on air, I'm only human. So what? I graduated magna cum laude from the 138th ranked school and top performers on social mobility. That doesn't make me any better than anyone else. I'm no more special than anyone listening. I'm one of you. I put my pants on just like everyone else who wears pants when I wear pants. But I assume it would be the same for shorts or any garment of clothing. There are plenty of things I don't know. That's the point. And what I wanted to show people in this crazy time we're in, it's okay not to have the answers. And it's okay not to know sometimes. That's what makes us human. That's what makes us us. So with that, I invented this segment called Things I Don't Know, where I share things I used to not know that I now do know, just in case any of you don't know, so that you can know. Number one, Alshon Jeffrey is on the Eagles. Had no idea that. Seemed like a really big deal when he was telling Josina Anderson about how bad Carson Wentz is. They brought in a bunch of wide receivers. I just assumed the team would move on, like probably many of us did. Much to my surprise, when I see he's still on the roster, coming back from foot surgery, which is one of many worldly examples why it's bad to assume. Never assume. There's an old nursery rhyme. Keep this one up in your... There's an old nursery rhyme. Keep this one up in your noggin. Save it for later. So in case anyone asks you about why not to assume. I think this one may have also come from George Washington Carver, one of the two. You know why you never assume? Because it makes an ass out of you and I. Number two. Apparently, people use nooses to open garage doors. This is one I'm not proud that I didn't know, but I'm also not proud that I have to know. Everyone knows the Bubba Wallace story. Noose found in his garage store at Talladega. Stall number 4. Number 4 is my favorite number. That doesn't have anything to do with the story, though. Probably not the best time to mention that. I'll be honest, every time I talk about serious stuff, I kind of panic a teensy-weensy bit, get a little scared. I'm going to say something wrong or get misconstrued. It makes me a little nervous, and then I start talking about dumb things like my favorite number, my favorite color. My favorite color is orange, by the way. Not a traditional choice. I think that's kind of what I like about it. I'm doing it again. So after an FBI investigation, they found it wasn't a hate crime of someone putting up a noose because Bubba was in that stall, because the noose was just there, like, all the time, which apparently doesn't make it a crime. But I'm going to be honest. I'm not sure that makes it better. Now, many of you know, for a period of my life, I was widely considered NASCAR's number one fan. I put down a $30 bet on Denny Hamlin to win the Dixie Vodka 400 about a month ago. And after a 4-hour rain delay, that's exactly what he fucking did. In full disclosure, I have not watched a NASCAR race or related event since, but on that one day, I would say me and NASCAR had a moment. And in exchange for that moment and my $300 profit that they gave me, they did not give it to me. It was not from NASCAR, but I guess it was indirectly from NASCAR. Anyway, because of that reward of just self-fulfillment and excitement they gave me, I feel responsible to offer the sport that gave me so much some advice. And that advice would be, don't have nooses to open your garage doors, and probably just don't have them in general. If the racial and or suicidal history of them. It's not enough to sway you. I just think it might be better showcase of the brand and definitely make it easier for me to say that I was your number one fan. You're NASCAR, the front line of automobile technology. And I know a ton of resources go into building a multi-million-dollar car, but electric garage door openers only cost like a couple $100. And to avoid future confusion and FBI involvement in the case of hate crimes, I think the investment would cover the costs. They would probably be a quality investment for any and all garage doors, especially ones similar to the one in question here. You're welcome, NASCAR. Number 3. And this one really got me. Number 3. Ranch is made of mayo, which is wild because I actually love ranch and hate mayo. Who knew? I didn't. And with that does it for us today. Thank you all so much for listening. I cannot undersell how appreciative I am, especially now doing this just completely stupid show. I'm very, very, very appreciative for anyone who listens and supports it and genuinely enjoys it. Thank you all so much. We have plenty of exciting stuff coming up, trying to get planned. A couple more interview stuff, a couple more format changes. If there's anything you would like to see, please let me know, either at our Instagram handle at slaphappy_media or at my own personal Instagram handle, Ryan_Cano_consistent. And yeah, let me know if you have any thoughts of what you would like to see me do going forward, or the show do going forward, or Steve do going forward. Steve, would you be involved? Well, Steve, don't say you're not going to be involved. Well, I just told them you were going to be involved. Why do you always do this? You always just make me look like an idiot on air. Do you enjoy it? See, that's just mean. It's just mean. Are we still on? We're still on. Anyway, thank you all so much, and we will see you hopefully next Monday. Steve, play us out. Play us out. Smell you later.